Della as a character is kind of an oddity when it comes to the greater Ducktales lore, or Duck lore, because she doesn't really have any. Now, you can find, say, the odd short here and there in the comics, but Della doesn't really say or do anything. The mystery of Huey, Dewey, and Louie's parents was always that, a mystery, and it really came down to the fact that Disney never had an answer for it. They just wanted Donald to have nephews. Even the 1938 cartoon, Donald's Nephews, introduces her through a letter. I remember the first time I even thought about her existing, and it was when I read The Life of Scrooge, Part 11, Empire Builder from Calisota, when she was introduced by Hortense and Quackmore along with Donald. And that's kind of it, save a mention in Part 12, when Huey, Dewey, and Louie mentioned that they know what it's like to have family members disappear. Other comics play up with really just the idea that she's always wanted to be a pilot, and even those are few and far between. With that in mind, where was Della? Where was her husband or the baby daddy? Well, no one really knew. Again, because it never had an answer. No one ever really posed the question. Huey, Dewey, and Louie was always part of Donald's story, not Huey, Dewey, and Louie's, and that'll be something we'll mention when we actually talk about Huey, Dewey, and Louie later on. There is one comic that came out, and to my knowledge, it's never been translated in English. It essentially reveals that Della is currently traveling through space, part of this program, and she's having the time of her life. But as far as she knows, it's only been at most a week or two since she left. And Huey, Dewey, and Louie, when they see her, they don't tell her anything. They don't tell her, like, you know what, she'll be fine. She's having fun. We don't want her to have to come down here and ruin her good time. And to me, it just felt kind of bad. Like, okay, we answer the question, and then nothing comes from it. And in a way, it doesn't really make sense. And this reminds me of something Don Rosa said. He said he didn't see any real story that appealed to him with Della because she was either dead/missing, which is actually just very depressing, or she was out there, presumably with her husband, so the questions would be where to go from there. If they're alive, then Huey and Lou would have to leave to be with their parents, and that made no sense for the story going forward. The dynamic of Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Uncle Donald and Uncle Scrooge is the formula that works. Adding 1 to 2 extra characters to be regulars wouldn't quite make sense. Why wouldn't Della go? Why would she go? Where's the dad? Again, it's just an unnecessary question. I mention this because it meant that the sky really was the limit with Della for the reboot, and it just sort of felt to me that the mystery of Della works. The character doesn't quite, or rather, how Della is handled in the story doesn't quite work. So, I have a couple small issues with the mystery itself, and that is oddly more of a Donald video, oddly enough. Della is presented as sort of the Dewey of the trio in a lot of ways, if we say that Donald is Huey and Scrooge is Louie, in that she doesn't really think things through and goes with sort of carpe diem route. She gets so excited about the next big adventure that she kind of ignores the risk, hence the Spear of Selene. This isn't an attempt to say Della is ignorant or even uncaring of what happens, as both whatever happened to Della Duck, nothing can stop Della Duck, do a good job in one way or another of showing that she does regret doing it, but I don't think the series explores it properly. I know I said that Della best represents Dewey, but the series also tries to inform us that elements of all 3 boys can be found in their mother, which I think is just another way of showing that we have no intention of revealing who their father is, what happened, it's just the thing. And I was hoping we'd get more of a desire for return to normalcy for her with Donald, but instead, that goes to Huey, and I think that was a mistake, as the only real time Donald and Della talk about the spear is because she finds out Donald is going on a long trip with Daisy, who Della, oddly enough, hasn't actually met, and I think New Gods on the Block should have had that be the focus. Like, there's this sort of weird attempt to keep Della's actual relationships focused on her kids. And, to be fair, that's great. Season 1 was all about the kids and wanted to know what happened to their mother. And again, whatever happened to Della Duck shows that she really does love those boys. She really regrets not seeing them, not being there. But with that in mind, with the idea that she's never been trick-or-treating with her sons, that she hasn't been trick-or-treating with her brother in a decade, that she's missed out on holidays, firsts, and Elvet, she really only plays that up in Nothing Can Stop Della Duck. But maybe that should have been more played out over a couple of episodes. And granted, there are episodes with her and each nephew. Most of them with Dewey, oddly enough. But with in regards to the rest of them, no. I mean, there's some fun little stuff in the background. Like, Challenge of the Senior Woodchucks does a great job of showing how hyped Della can be for her boys. We're seeing Huey take his, Senior Woodchuck test. She's excited about that. The legacy is alive, as she says, and I do love that. But again, what about her relationship with Scrooge and Donald? A lot of that we see in the past, in flashbacks. First Adventure shows her relationship with Donald and her growing relationship with Scrooge. And it's sort of interesting because with Scrooge, you sort of get the idea that Della was the perfect sidekick. She would have been the Robin to his Batman. She was the Robin to his Batman. And she's the Robin that had a great adventure. She was able to leave it all behind. And, if needed, she'll be right there, but she's totally fine just staying home and waiting to see what happens. That's great, and I would have liked to have seen a really great moment with Scrooge, Della, and Donald as this real dynamic adventure trio, which the series sort of teased every now and then, but never really went full enough with. I would have liked to have seen a moment where the kids think they got this, they can handle their own adventure. With Webby being the Scrooge of it, because, that'd have been more foreshadowing, and the boys being, quote-unquote, Della/Donald. And then thinking they got it, and then, Scrooge, Donald, and Della like, nah, They go, let me show you how the grown folk do it, and it just be awesome, And it's just sort of a way to inspire them to do more. Now, none of this means I dislike Della's character. Far from it. I think when she's in something like Challenge of the Senior Woodchucks, The Lost Cargo of Kit Cloudkicker, she's great because I think she feels more natural to the series. Regardless of my issues with Lost Cargo, the idea that Della did know Kit and Molly was great. I'd have liked if she knew Baloo. I thought the logic would have been that she knew Baloo and that Kit and Molly would have still been 10 and whatever years old, and they'd interact with the kids, but whatever. But because of the role she played in season 1 alone, you think she'd have had a strong interaction with members of the cast who weren't just Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Well, because the series is going to this bigger story with her return, and the focus is still primarily on the nephews, you sort of get it, but at the same time, neither Scrooge nor Donald have any real interactions with Della. Della doesn't even get a rapport with Gyro after the whole gum thing, And the gum thing was a big deal.
Another classic Gyro failure, along with his weird tiny glasses and his dumb tiny hat and his complete inability to perform even the basic functions required to pass for a human being.
Wow, Mom, you had that Gyro insult locked and loaded, huh?
Compare this to, say, Stanley and Stanford in Gravity Falls, where, sure, they don't have a multitude of great scenes, but every scene they have is charged with emotion of, what happened when they last saw each other, their opinions of each other, their childhood, leading up to this moment. Even the weird finale where Stan messes it up because he's just being stubborn, and then he fixes it. It's all really great because of that. But the series ultimately goes the route of Donald, Della, and even Scrooge having to be in the background for the passing of the torch. So, sort of, I think my issue with the end of season 3 is that as a finale, it just sort of solidifies what I think we already knew, that it was about the boys and sometimes Webby. But these other stronger characters don't really get, I think, the proper time. Anyway, that's kind of it. So yeah, Della doesn't have enough DuckTales lore for you to say which one is the best one, because she really only has one. It sort of represents the question of, do you like the idea of Della, which I think would be revealed in every other iteration bar 2017, where we have small snippets and this great idea that she's almost a sort of Rosie the Riveter kind of girl, where she sees something, she wants to apply herself to it, and she goes from there, or this actual look at her, which has a lot of great moments, but the greater substance, I think, isn't sprinkled around properly, at least for me. So what do you guys think? Do you like Della in the reboot? Do you not like her? Do you like the idea of Della better? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'll catch you all later. This is Bug Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.